But first, it's a pleasure and a great honor to welcome to Wogan Her Royal Highness, Princess Anne.
The sun sinks behind Windsor's ancient stone walls, draping the castle in twilight the color of bruised violets. The last light fractures through tall mullioned windows, spilling across marble floors and illuminating dust motes that drift like suspended memories. The stillness feels ceremonial, almost reverent, as if the very air braces for history to shift. Within the private royal library, candle flames sway in controlled flickers, sending golden reflections dancing over rows of leather-bound volumes, while the scent of beeswax polish and aged parchment hangs heavily in the air. This room has witnessed whispered confessions of monarchs, the signing of treaties, and the silent unraveling of secrets, and tonight, it braces for one more. Princess Anne sits at the grand mahogany desk beneath an immense oil painting of her younger self on horseback, fiery, determined. Disciplined the girl in the portrait still exists within her, but age has sharpened rather than softened her. Lines of experience trace the edges of her eyes, and duty has molded her posture into something unyielding. She has become the family's silent shield, the one least prone to scandal or sentiment, yet even she cannot ignore the letter before her. The sealed envelope on the desk bears no crest or formal insignia, only typed initials and a private weight of significance she cannot yet name. The envelope bore only a courier mark, its lack of ceremony making it louder than any royal seal could. Secrets rarely travel clothed in official elegance, and the most dangerous truths arrive quietly. Anne studied it without touching, her breath steady, her face unreadable, yet a tension hung in her shoulders, subtle and unmistakable. She had known for many years that the past carries debts no crown can permanently bury. At last, she broke the seal. Inside, the paper was crisp and painfully ordinary. Her eyes scanned the header. A private laboratory, a confirmation request processed discreetly and urgently. Beneath the formalities lay a phrase that tightened her throat. Mandatory confidentiality. She read the results clinical, dry, precisely measured, but the sterile words carried the weight of a thunderclap. DNA sequencing completed, chain of custody confirmed, maternal lineage verified, Princess Diana confirmed. Anne's fingers froze over the page. The fire behind her crackled as if the room itself reacted. For a long moment, she did not move, her eyes lingering on the signature line of a doctor sworn to secrecy. A silence thickened around her, not peaceful, but heavy, the kind that follows an earthquake no one else has yet felt. Then she exhaled, slow and controlled. So it is true. The words fell with the gravity of a verdict, and her disciplined mind began pulling memories from the past, not sentimental memories, but observations, hints, signs. She recalled the tension between Diana and the institution, the way Diana smiled for crowds, yet carried a quiet defiance beneath her angelic charm. The world saw a fairy tale, the palace saw a wildfire, and remembered a conversation from years ago, a rare moment when Diana spoke without camera flash or curated grace, her voice low, urgent. One day everything will change, Anne. And when it does, the truth will matter more than tradition. At the time, Anne had dismissed the comment as another of Diana's emotional flourishes, romantic idealism unsuited to monarchy. But now, looking at the paper in her hands, she wondered whether Diana had been speaking of this very secret, one not meant as now, decades later, courses through her fingertips. It is not a betrayal of intent. Diana had lived, loved, and suffered within the boundaries of her own choices, but of expectation, of structure, of the quiet order, and had always relied upon. She sets the envelope down, yet cannot leave it behind. Each detail, each phrase, reverberates in her mind. DNA confirmed, maternal lineage verified. The room seems smaller suddenly, the portraits on the walls watching with ancient eyes, witnessing the disruption of a carefully curated world. And straightens, inhaling deeply, her mind already sorting through contingencies, possibilities, repercussions. There are questions only she can ask now, decisions that require discretion, timing, and an understanding of the monarchy's pulse that only a life lived within its walls can provide. Outside, the evening bells toll again, deeper this time, resonating like the heartbeat of history itself. A secret that has waited decades now demands acknowledgement, strategy, and above all, patience. Anne's gaze returns to the moonlit grounds. Somewhere beneath those ancient trees, the legacy of Diana has re-emerged, a living proof of truths long whispered, long feared, long ignored. Anne knows that in the coming days, the palace will not merely witness this revelation, it will feel it. Every corridor guard, every whispered protocol will bend under the gravity of what she now holds. The weight of blood and history presses on her shoulders. And yet, she is an of the palace, disciplined, vigilant, unyielding. She will carry it. She will act. But first, she must understand it fully. Almost imperceptible, but sensed by those attuned to palace rhythms. Courtiers exchange glances. Staff move with slightly increased urgency, and whispered conversations cease the moment a senior official enters the room and walks the corridors with measured steps, the envelope pressed briefly to her chest before she tucks it safely into the inner pocket of her coat. Her mind is already mapping out contingencies, weighing loyalty against truth, reputation against justice, discretion against revelation. Each decision carries consequences that will ripple through generations. She reaches the private chambers, where senior advisors and select family members will convene. The group gathers with polite efficiency, but senses the tension immediately. They feel that the air itself is charged with the kind of news that can destabilize even the most controlled institution. Clearing her throat, she speaks with calm authority. Every word deliberate. There is a matter we must address, a confirmation. Long speculated, now verified. The room stills. Eyes narrow, hands tighten around teacups. Even seasoned officials feel the weight of history pressing down. And continues, voice steady. This information concerns lineage, legacy, and the choices we make going forward. It will require careful deliberation, discretion, and above all, a strategy that respects both the truth and the stability of the crown. Outside the palace walls, London hums as usual, unaware that the foundations of tradition are trembling beneath the surface. Somewhere, a story long dormant has emerged, and Windsor Castle itself seems to hold its breath, waiting for the first move in a game that will not merely make headlines, but rewrite them. If you like, I can continue with Anne's first steps in orchestrating how this revelation is handled, including who she consults and how the monarchy balances secrecy with inevitable public scrutiny. Eyes narrow slightly, a subtle contraction that conveys both impatience and resolve. Long enough, she murmurs, almost to herself. Then louder, firmer. We proceed as though this has always been known. We plan for consequences, not for denial. The world will adjust. We must simply decide how much they see, and when. Sir Alistair leans back, hands steepled, a gesture of thought and caution. Your Highness, the stakes are unprecedented. A new heir, unknown until now. It will reshape public perception, parliamentary considerations, even family dynamics. Every decision must be calculated, and tilts her head considering. Calculation is necessary, but hesitation is a luxury. Every day we delay, speculation grows, and the crown becomes reactive instead of proactive. We decide, we act, we control the narrative on our terms. A quiet understanding passes between them. Sir Alistair recognizes that Anne's resolve is absolute. She is not asking for counsel. She is setting a course. The envelope, still tucked in her coat pocket, seems almost to pulse with latent power, the weight of revelation contained in a few pieces of paper, and stands, straight and purposeful. Arrange discreet consultations. Limit attendance to those whose loyalty is unquestioned. Draft statements, but hold them. We do not speak until the moment we choose. And ensure the children are shielded from all of this, until and unless it becomes necessary for them to know. Sir Alistair nods, already mapping the first steps of execution, and moves toward the door, her boots echoing against polished floors, each step a declaration. History will not surprise her. The storm may be coming, but she will determine its path. Outside, the ancient palace walls seem heavier somehow, as if they too understand that a truth once buried is now awake. If you want, I can continue the scene with, and initiating the first discreet communications, and the inner dynamics of how the family will process the revelation before the public learns. Behind her eyes flares, and she realizes the gravity. This is no casual plea. This is someone claiming a place in the lineage, demanding a reckoning. Recognition is power, legitimacy, and challenge all at once. And exhales, steadying herself. Very well, she says, her voice calm but edged with steel. We will meet. But on our terms. Discreetly. No public presence. No leaks. And no decisions will be made in haste. The monarchy endures, not on impulse, but on measured response. Sir Alistair bows his head subtly, understanding the implicit command. The weight of precedent presses down. Every royal decision ripples outward. Public sentiment, parliamentary reaction, international attention. And now, a life previously unknown has entered the calculus, and rises, folding her hands behind her back, pacing the room with precise steps. Prepare the venue. Private secure. Only those essential to witness or advise. And ensure full documentation protocols, identifications, everything verified. If this individual is legitimate, we must acknowledge without compromising stability. If not, we must act swiftly, but with discretion. A pause. Silence hangs between them like a drawn curtain. Outside, the palace continues its morning routines, oblivious to the seismic shift about to occur within these walls. Anne's mind flickers briefly to Diana, her sister-in-law's voice, her prescience, her understanding that truth has its own timing. Diana may be gone, but now, decades later, her shadow informs every choice, and meets Sir Alistair's gaze. Arrange everything. I will not be surprised, nor will I be unprepared. The crown adapts. We begin the audience at dawn. Until then, no word leaves this room. Sir Alistair nods, his face unreadable, but the tension in his shoulders betrays the gravity, and turns back toward the window, gazing out at the misted gardens of Windsor. History waits silently. And for once, it waits for her to decide the first move. If you want, I can continue with the tense prelude to the actual meeting with this newly revealed heir, showing both Anne's strategy and the palace's internal preparation. Princess Anne listens as the weight of Sir Alistair's words settles between them, the fire that once fueled her equestrian discipline now burning behind her eyes. And if he goes public? She asks, already knowing the answer. Sir Alistair meets her stare without flinching. The monarchy will not shape the narrative. It will be forced to respond to it. The truth hangs in the air, fragile and explosive. Beyond the conference room door, distant voices drift through the hallway, staff preparing for the day, tourists soon to admire chandeliers and tapestries, unaware that an earthquake is rumbling behind locked doors, and rises and moves toward the window, studying the manicured garden's order, symmetry, responsibility, everything she has spent a lifetime defending. Diana never belonged to us, she says quietly. Not truly. The world loved her. The institution tolerated her. And now, even from beyond the grave, she remains a force that cannot be silenced. Sir Alistair folds his hands, choosing his words carefully. Princess Diana was unpredictable, yet she understood her influence. If she made decisions without informing the palace, she may have believed time would vindicate her, and turns sharply, eyes flashing. Or she knew the institution would never permit her choice. Silence answers her accusation. She draws a slow breath, her posture resetting into duty's familiar armor. I will meet him, she declares. But not here. Not under protocol. Not as an institution. Sir Alistair inclines his head. As you wish, Your Royal Highness. And steps toward the door, pauses, and adds, prepare for consequences. Yes, ma'am. For centuries, royal history has never been shaped without cost. Today will be no exception. Tiny photograph, faded but unmistakable. Diana, smiling gently, hair catching the light as if alive in the moment. Anne's fingers trace the edges without touching the image, as though contact might shatter the fragile proof of a hidden truth. The man's voice breaks the silence. I have waited decades for someone in your position to see this, to know that I exist. And studies him, every carefully trained muscle taut, weighing the years of loyalty, discretion, and duty against the undeniable evidence in her hand. And what do you want? She asks, her tone precise, unyielding. Recognition, he replies simply, unwavering. Not wealth, not position. Acknowledgement of the truth my mother carried in her heart and could never declare. The air between them is thick, filled with the weight of history, expectation, and the quiet tremor of the institution confronted by a reality it cannot ignore. And exhales slowly, the steel of her duty meeting the fire of undeniable fact. Then we proceed carefully, she says at last. For the sake of the monarchy, and for the sake of Diana. The room seems to settle, the chandelier's light casting long shadows across the floor, but the echo of this moment will ripple far beyond these walls, reshaping what everyone thought they knew about legacy, love, and the unbreakable ties of blood, diplomacy to something heavier, almost sacred. The weight of history presses down in the room, mingling with the quiet crackle of the fire, and folds her hands in her lap, her voice deliberate, steady, controlled. Then we must consider how to frame this truth. How it is revealed matters as much as the revelation itself. The public cannot be allowed to feel the monarchy fractured. It must understand continuity, stability, yet also honesty. He studies her, patient but resolute. I do not care for optics or strategy. I care for recognition. For the world to know my mother's choice was real, that she bore me in secret, not out of shame, but out of necessity, and nods slowly. And the line of succession? Your existence does not change it, not legally, not constitutionally. But it changes perception. History will look differently upon every decision, every alliance, every moment of your mother's life. That is unavoidable. He meets her gaze evenly. I accept that. I do not want to unravel anything, only to exist openly as she wished I could. The firelight shifts across Anne's face as she exhales. The path forward is treacherous, yet inevitable. Then we proceed quietly, strategically. Recognition will come, but on terms that preserve the monarchy, honor your mother, and respect the institution she challenged yet loved. You will have your truth, and we will protect it together. For the first time, the tension in the room eases slightly. The son of Diana stands acknowledged, and Anne realizes that the monarchy, resilient as ever, may yet survive this revelation stronger for confronting what was long hidden. If you want, I can continue the scene to show their plan for disclosure, and the private steps they take to prepare the monarchy and the public for this unprecedented truth. Witnesses beyond those sworn to absolute discretion. And steps inside. The room is spare cream walls, polished oak table, a single chandelier low over the center. Security measures are subtle but unmistakable. 2 discreet officers in the corners, communication lines sealed, no access without clearance. The gravity of secrecy presses down, heavier than the marble beneath her feet. She sits, hands folded neatly, posture precise. Across from her, he takes the seat she gestures to, the locket still in his pocket as a silent talisman of truth. For a long moment, only the faint ticking of the wall clock fills the space. Then Anne speaks, measured, deliberate. We proceed cautiously, she says. The public cannot be allowed to perceive a fracture. Stability must remain. Yet truth will be honored. Your existence, acknowledged, quietly, strategically. He nods, a weight lifting slightly from his shoulders. Recognition, he replies, not to claim, not to disrupt, only to exist as my mother intended. And studies him. There will be conditions. Legal clarity, constitutional boundaries, ceremonial boundaries. Every step we take must protect the monarchy, respect your mother, and prevent chaos. I understand, he says. I am prepared for patience. The firelight flickers across their faces, casting shadows that seem to stretch beyond the walls, as if history itself leans in to witness this moment. And exhales, the first sign of release in hours, days, perhaps years. Then we begin, she says, with careful measures. The truth will be preserved, but the world will not yet see it. Not until the monarchy and I are ready. He meets her gaze steadily. I will wait. The air between them is taut but quiet, charged with a shared understanding. Outside the room, the palace continues its daily rhythm, oblivious to the seismic shift that has just taken place within. And for the first time, Anne feels that duty and personal conscience, tradition and truth, might finally align, even if only in secret. If you like, I can continue with how Anne orchestrates the first steps of discreet recognition while keeping the monarchy publicly stable. This next part can show the tension between secrecy, legacy, and public perception. Minutes from the meeting would never be officially recorded, for what was spoken in that room could exist only in memory and consequence. For of the monarchy's senior advisers, Sir Leicester Pembroke, Lady Evelyn Marchmont, Commander Basil Hartwell, and Lord Whitcomb sat in solemn silence as Princess and took her place at the head of the table. Sir Leicester began without ceremony, asking whether the meeting with Diana's alleged son had taken place, and if he had confirmed his intentions, and replied that he sought only acknowledgement, nothing more. Commander Hartwell cautioned that intentions could evolve, and that the world was no longer controlled by tradition. If his identity became public, neither the monarchy, the government, nor the media would be able to contain the fallout. Lady Marchmont noted Diana's unprecedented public adoration, and warned that the revelation of a secret child would ignite the nation, some condemning the secrecy, others romanticizing it, many demanding his place within royal narrative. Though Anne insisted he did not seek position, Lord Whitcomb reminded her that public perception would soon overpower fact, reshaping the monarchy's emotional foundation. Sir Leicester added that public trust was fragile, and that tying another seismic revelation to Diana could push the institution from stability into chaos, and countered that denial of truth would be far more dangerous. And when Lady Marchmont asked whether she believed him, and admitted she did not because of documents or resemblance, but because he felt like unfinished history. A brief, heavy silence followed before Commander Hartwell warned that the man's safety must be considered, for the world would not leave him alone. A hidden royal was often more valuable than a visible one. And nodded, fully aware of the storm gathering beyond the palace walls. Security will be addressed, Sir Alistair said, leaning slightly forward, and the family would need to be informed before rumour escaped containment. Anne's gaze sharpened. Rumour will not escape, she said, yet Lord Whitcomb allowed himself a faint, humourless smile. With respect, Your Royal Highness, rumour always escapes. And lifted her chin. Then we move swiftly. Communication with the family must be private, direct, and factual. Lady Marchmont asked cautiously, which facts science, emotional truth, Diana's intentions, consequences? And paused, then said all of them. Diana lived under scrutiny no human should endure, yet remained adored not for perfection, but for vulnerability. Denying that humanity now would cost not only public confidence, but legitimacy. Sir Alistair nodded slowly. The question was no longer whether he existed, but how to integrate his existence. And spoke firmly. We do not rush, we do not react, we prepare. Evolution, not crisis control. Commander Hartwell noted that monarchy does not evolve easily. Anne's eyes narrowed slightly. Then it is time to learn how. Silence fell, but this time not from fear. It was acknowledgement, a crossing of a line that cannot be uncrossed. Lord Wickham broke the silence. When will you see him again? And stood, and Sir Alistair rose with her. Until then, she paused at the door and answered with quiet resolve. The palace remains silent. The world cannot know what we now know, but the truth is awake and will not return to sleep. She exited into halls lined with portraits of monarchs, some who ruled through fear, reverence, or survival, while the monarchy braced for a new era, shaped not by ceremony, but by truth. The next evening, the palace was cloaked in a sacred stillness. Rain fell over the ancient courtyard, each drop catching lantern light like falling diamonds, the atmosphere suspended between eras. And sat alone in a private reception room, the fire burning steadily, the faint scent of old paper, roses, and polished mahogany in the air. In her hands was a sealed envelope in Diana's handwriting, preserved for decades, unlocked only because the truth demanded it. A knock broke the silence. He entered the man whose existence had shifted the monarchy's axis. Hesitant yet respectful, aware of boundaries and belonging, he bowed slightly, and gestured to the chair opposite her. Sit. He did. The fire crackled softly as silence filled the room. Finally, and spoke. I have read everything, consulted experts, and spoken with those who knew Diana. He swallowed, visibly nervous, and studied him, measuring meaning rather than fact. You are not lying. You never were. Relief softened his shoulders. I never wanted to disrupt, he said. I only wanted to understand who I am and why I was hidden. And held the envelope. There were reasons, some compassionate, some strategic, some tragic. She continued. By the time you were born, the pressure on Diana was unbearable. Cameras hunted her, rumour became weapon, vulnerability became entertainment. She feared for you, choosing protection, not abandonment. Silence followed. I grew up with fragments, he said, hints, half-spoken secrets. And nodded. That senses blood lineage echoes, royal or not. I understand that revealing the truth could cause chaos. I do not want title or power, only honesty. Perhaps a place quietly acknowledged, and leaned forward. Your existence challenges the monarchy's narrative, not by threat, but by embodying something Diana carried, humanity. He met her eyes. Yes, she said, slowly exhaling. So what happens now? And walked to the window overlooking the rain-soaked courtyard. Truth must be handled with precision. Too sudden, it becomes spectacle, hidden forever, scandal. She turned. There is a path between extremes requiring timing, strategy, trust. He lifted the envelope. This letter was written for you, kept in safekeeping until certain circumstances aligned. His voice trembled. She knew, and nodded. She suspected the world would be ready someday, and that the monarchy would resist. She handed him the letter. His fingers shook as he accepted it, the wax seal snapping softly. He read silently, recognition, grief, shock, then something softer, peace. Closing it carefully, he looked to the rain-streaked glass. The letter said he was loved, wanted, and his existence was no mistake. Diana instructed him to seek truth, not permission. Anne's posture softened. She had been braver than any had acknowledged. He nodded. She was building a monarchy capable of humanity, not perfection, and returned to her seat. For generations, the crown survived by guarding itself, but Diana had shown that the world no longer wanted royalty behind glass. The fire crackled louder, and spoke the decision. You will remain private, but no longer a ghost. Family members will know quietly, truth before announcement. He exhaled, relief and gratitude blending. When the time is right, the world will learn the truth not through rumor or scandal, but with dignity. He nodded slowly, accepting the weight and mercy of the decision. Anne's voice softened, almost maternal. Your existence does not diminish this family. It reminds us of what we lost and what we must never forget again. Outside, the rain faded. History had not yet changed, but it had begun. Secrets long buried have a way of returning, sometimes reshaping history rather than destroying it.